What's up, dudes? Um, this morning was absolutely amazing. I'm on a trip right now, heading to Universal with my family. So one of my kids' birthday weekend. Um, I filmed this already on Thursday, but our dear friend Leo called me in the middle of it. And if you know anybody that's selling a car, reach out to Leo. He's looking. But let me share the backstory here in Hebrews. You guys know where I stand. In order to understand one of these memory verses, I gotta or be able to memorize it. I gotta understand what's happening in the background. And sorry if you guys hear a movie in the background with my kids or any noise there. Let me read the verse. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and was seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Garrett had some awesome ways. I love the cards, by the way. Um, and for those that are not in my squad, the Garrett is our squad leader, and it's really cool. I'll send you the video that he shared with us. It's actually really good. Also, there's an app that's out there, but you guys know me. I just want to know what's actually happening. What's happening in the scripture? Where are they? What's the history behind it? So, many believe that this letter to the Hebrews is in this time frame before 70 AD, before the destruction of the temple, because it's not referenced here in this book. Some also believe that it's afterwards. What we do know is that there's been heavy persecution already. We don't know the author; it's anonymous. A lot of people will say, "Hey, it's Paul." I think that there's a um, really great argument as to why it's not Paul. But some of the names out there, like Apollos, Barnabas, and even Priscilla or Clement, may have written this note. What we do know is that the people that receiving this know the Old Testament and the Torah, the stories from old. They know them, right? So there's a huge Jewish background within this letter that's extremely important to note. And the other thing, we also know that it's from Italy, and then one of the last lines is like, "Hey, the line here in chapter 13, verse, man, I went all the way to James, verse 24, greet all your leaders and all the saints, those who come from Italy, send you greeting." So it doesn't necessarily call it Rome or Babylon like it did in First Peter, if you saw that one. So, yeah, we know that it's from Italy. Here's the other piece. Um, we know that this church had experienced some pretty severe persecution. They've um, had the opportunity to see faith needing to endure at this point. Um, so the main story behind this letter is like, don't quit, follow Jesus, look to Jesus, don't go back. Jesus is better. That's what we see through chapters 1 through 10. Really, that the writer is building this case as to why Jesus is better than everything. The angels, Moses, the Old Testament heroes that we have, the priesthood and sacrifices, that Jesus is better, that he is our high priest, that he is the true high priest. And then that's where chapter 11 comes in. And this is what many know as the Hall of Faith, right? And it has this lineup of heroes, men and women, whether it's, Rahab, whether it's Noah, whether it's Moses or Abraham. Um, we see the victory from these heroes. We see some of the defeats there, some of the things that they suffered horribly. But what we see endure through it all is faith. They kept going because one, God is real. They believed God was worth it all, right? And so we get this hall of faith in chapter 11. So that's then where we hit really the climax of this whole book of Hebrews, in this letter that's written, this sermon that's delivered. The climax is right here in chapter 12, verses 1 and 2, and it starts with therefore. And if you study the word and you see a therefore, I learned this long ago, you always ask the question, what is it there for? And we're basically reading that therefore into what happened in chapter 11, because you've seen all of these founders of the faith, these well, let me take that back, because you've seen all of these patriarchs, all of these heroes in the faith, endure and run their race, you should run too. And so then we get this line of, we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses. The cloud is what we see in chapter 11, the lives and testimonies of these heroes, um, screaming at us that God is faithful, believe in him, trust in him, over and over and over again, and don't stop, keep pursuing God. So, one, it's not, just, pointing to those witnesses as just this cloud that's up in heaven, but no, this is like a tangible evidence. Think about the people that got this letter. They know the word, they know what the Old Testament says, and they know their ancestors and their ancestors telling these stories from generation to generation to generation. So, this is evidence. This is like my family, that endured through hard times, and that their faith was real. So the writer then tells us, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely. And this is where we get this aspect of, sometimes there are things that get in our way. Some things that may be, um, may weigh us down, and maybe that's sin, maybe that is other things that are good, but they're not the great thing, right? And so there's these weights, and then there's sin that's clinging so closely, that the things that tangle us from being able to live for the Lord day in and day out. And then it says, run with endurance the race that is set before us. What we now get is how we run. What's the how behind it, and that's where we get verse 2, looking to Jesus, not the heroes from chapter 11. Those are great. That's great evidence, that propels us and carries us forward. But the looking forward, the way that we get there is primarily through Jesus, who is called the founder and perfecter of our faith. And then it says, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross. That joy isn't like the pain of going to the cross. That joy is what we get now, like that relationship, that beauty. One, of what happens after the cross, that we get full connection with God. But two, he did the Father's will. Like that joy of being obedient, of loving the Father and being in perfect communion and having his people, his friends, the ones that he loved, that he came to die for, to be able to have that same communion. That's us. That's us. So him being able to fulfill the mission that the Lord gave him, the rescuing of his people, and then being able to be in the presence of the Father right now, despising the shame. And now, what is it? How does it end? It ends with, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. So Jesus endured all of this suffering because he didn't just see the temporary cross as the end all be all. He saw right through it. He saw the long road. He saw us. He saw us right here in Fight Club, memorizing the scripture and being excited about following after the King of Kings. That's why this verse matters. That's why it's like that pinnacle. It's like being able to show, like, hey, you guys have been through persecution. You guys have been through the really hard times. Endure. Keep going. Don't stop. Don't stop. Therefore, right? Like it's absolutely beautiful. So I hope that helps you. It's because it's what the writer is telling us today, and how I read the scripture is what was it? What was the scripture saying to the original audience that it was sent to? What is it saying to the church now? And then what is it saying to me specifically? And so I hope that you can hear that this church, they were going through hard times too. The weight, the sin was there. They endured. The witnesses from chapter 11 endured through the faith. So because of that, we have even more justification to look to Jesus. And because we live on the other side of that, where Jesus is that king that's sitting at the right hand right now, that if he endured the cross because of the joy on the other side, you can endure your race too. Whatever you may be walking through, whatever that might be tough, whatever you might be feeling right now, you can endure because we're looking to the one that endured for us, that gives us his love, and he gives us his spirit right here, right now. That's just really, really great news. I hope that's great news to you. And it's helpful for me to understand what the heck is going on in this passage.